Yeah, so Chris Coulter, Director of Football Advancement. Like Keith said, really at the end of the day, my job is to get players, kind of like Ryan Callahan said, our job is always to recruit and get players here and get them excited about the University of Nebraska football program. But specifically helping kind of be a liaison from the coaching side of things to the creative side of things, making sure the coach's vision is shared with our creative staff, and making sure that we're getting kids excited about the University of Nebraska through creative content, and then helping Avery with visits any way that I can. She does a great job. But like I said, at the end of the day, my job is to help get players.
I'm Avery Gossett, like Keith said, Director of Recruiting Operations. I kind of oversee and plan out and do the scheduling and logistics for all of our on-campus visitors. I was a student worker here for 2 years in my undergrad. I had the opportunity, because of Coach Rule and this staff, to stay on as a graduate assistant after my graduation last May. In that role, I helped Vince with visits in the summer, so he kind of has taught me all I need to know with that. And then I worked hand in hand with Keith Williams for a little while too, kind of more on the personnel side, before I just started this role about 2 months ago.
Avery, you've now been able to go through some official visit weekends with the spring and have, of course, a pretty significant month of June ahead. Can you kind of give us a little bit of an idea of what that weekend, what one of those weekends looks like and what it's like for you from your perspective?
Yeah, definitely. The official visit weekends are super fun. It's a lot of food and spending time with everyone here on campus and our staff. Something that Coach Rule has really instilled in our program and what we do, and especially with the recruiting side of things, is academics. So something that I've been trying to work and integrate into our official visits is getting these prospective student athletes with their certain college of interest and having meetings with them. So it's been really fun to try to integrate that and work with different colleges here on campus to kind of make our visits stand out a little bit more. As we know, they're all here to be student athletes, so give them a little bit more of that like student visit as well.
How much food?
Lots of food. Everybody always says, man, are we ever going to not eat? Like, I'm going to have to fast after this, so. Yeah.
Andrew Ozaki from KUTV Omaha. Who comes up with some of the ideas of some of the social media posts,
Yeah, well, like everyone keeps saying up here, we're blessed with a very talented and experienced staff. So CJ Campbell and his staff do an unbelievable job. They're as talented as any group I've seen. And so it's all them. They do a phenomenal job. And like Ryan kind of alluded to earlier, we take input from the whole staff. So there's times where coaches will feed them ideas and other staff members will feed them ideas, but CJ and his staff do an unbelievable job with that.
This might seem odd. I've wondered this for a while. This is probably Avery's. When there's a big group of recruits coming in for a weekend, do you get names together for the coaches, particularly for Coach Rule? Because it's that's a lot of names to remember, and not only the players, but the people they're connected with.
Yeah, so we I do a lot of communication on the front end of things with the recruit and their family, and then we always meet as a staff to go over everything and make sure that everyone is on the same page. That's something that, communication is very key in a business like this with so many different moving parts. We have a very large staff, which is awesome, so just making sure that we're all communicating little bits and pieces of important things and key factors and information about mom and dad, and so that everybody's on the same board. Yeah.
Chris, you were at Florida State, obviously, and Wake Forest. What did you learn from those experiences, and how different is Nebraska than maybe working at a place like Florida State or Wake Forest?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I had never stepped foot in the state of Nebraska up until 2 months ago, but even having grown up and worked on the East Coast my whole life, you knew about the powerful brand that was here. And And so when Vince first reached out about this opportunity, first thing I did was look into Coach Rule and try to find some people who had worked with him. And everyone I talked to was like, it's a no-brainer. This is the guy you want to work for. He's the best in the business, and that's proved to be true during my 2 months here so far. But like I said, everyone knows about the brand of Nebraska and how big it is, and the resources we have here are second to none. A lot of schools like to say we have the best fans in college football, but here it's pretty concrete. When 396 straight games without an empty seat kind of speaks for itself. So this is a unique and special place, and I don't think there's any place like it.
What is unique about working for Coach Rule? What are some unique elements?
Yeah, he's very intense. He gets the best out of everyone. He's going to hold you extremely accountable and bring out the best in you. He's also going to protect you.
Protect.
He protects his guys, his team, his staff, everyone. He makes sure that they're treated correctly. He's going to hold you to a very high standard, but he makes sure it's fair and that everyone's treated the right way.
This is for anybody. What are the 2 or 3 things that you've seen the recruits that have come in maybe in the last couple months say about the new football building now that it's mostly online? What impresses them about it?
Everything. I mean, we built the best facilities there are in college football. The weight room is something that stands out to a lot of recruits and their families. I hear a lot about that. The walkthrough room, the technology and areas and spaces that we have that are available for our student athletes to use here are second to none, and everybody sees it right when they walk in the doors.
What is the walkthrough room? We keep acting like we know.
Right.
But can you tell us what it is?
Just imagine a big room where you get done meeting with your players if you're the position coach, and you can literally walk across the hallway, and in a full-size space, scaled 1-to-1, you can walk through what you just did on film. So you have the ability to do things really quickly and really maximize and be efficient with your time. And then it's a multi-use space, so players can go on their own, and take advantage of that area. And we'll probably use it for some other things in recruiting too.
Have you kind of seen when you're explaining that to the recruits that they start to get especially a quarterback, get their mind wrapped around?
Oh yeah, I think when you walk in that room and you realize that there's a video screen that's as wide as the football field, and that it's bigger than life. It literally is bigger than life. The possibilities. That movie Step Brothers. It's like so much room for activities in there. It's amazing. I think the other thing that stands out about our facility is I think it becomes very obvious that it was designed for players. It wasn't designed for coaches to have really cool offices or to be something that it wasn't. It was designed for players. Our recovery area is unbelievable, and the resources that we put into taking care of student athletes and making their experience better and increasing their production because of it. And I think that becomes apparent when they walk around here.
Vince, Coach Rule has been pretty consistent in putting young people in their 20s and 30s in important positions, from his coaching staff to the administration.
Yeah, I know. I'm the old one. I'm 40. I'm 40 something. All the 20s have been up here with me,
In recruiting and personnel, how have you seen him act similarly, and what's the advantage of having young eyes specifically on that part of the game?
I don't know if there's an advantage to young eyes. I think there's an advantage to having people that understand what coach's vision is. And I think some of our best evaluators are guys that have a lot of experience. Like talk about Ron Brown evaluating someone, right? But then turn around and talk about one of our young guys on our staff, or like Keith Williams. It's just different perspectives. So I think coming from perspectives and the younger set of eyes with an older set of eyes together, I think reaches that great consensus.
Hey, Avery, how critical are those relationships you build up with businesses in the area or people on campus as part of the official visit, where they're maybe going to a restaurant or whatever, and how important that is to have those connections?
Yeah, it's been really cool to Vince and I have all kind of worked together on that and building these connections with different vendors and restaurants and businesses around town. I've found places that I didn't even know about after I've lived here for going on 5-6 years. But it's really cool, and being able to like integrate them into our official visit process and have them kind of show off their areas and help us with these prospective student athletes and their families when they're here in town. Lincoln has a lot to show and a lot to give, and so it's definitely important that we showcase all of that for these visits.
Chris, I know you've been here a short time, but I'm sure you looked at what Nebraska was doing under Coach Rule before making the decision to join this group. Some of the stuff that Nebraska's done creatively, and I see in your job role, it includes like incorporating digital media into recruiting. Some of the stuff they've done, like from the documentary series in the preseason to the Chasing 3 series that's going on now. What's the benefit in recruiting for that? And did that help recruit you to Nebraska and seeing some of that stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's very important. I mean, content is king this day and age. You know, kids are on their phone very often. So the more we can have our brand in front of them, the better. And like I said before, CJ and his staff are unbelievably talented. The Chasing 3 documentary was unbelievable. We had a lot of good feedback from recruits and parents who would say, hey, we would sit down at night, family would get together in the living room, we'd put on Chasing 3, and but it's just the tip of the iceberg with the stuff that those guys and girls do in there. They're unbelievably talented, and some of the stuff you guys don't even see that we're just sending to recruits directly that CJ and his staff are doing. So it's very important. Yeah.
Chris, when it comes to branding, you know, recruits come that have never been to Nebraska before. You know, they're kind of surprised by the city they experience in Lincoln and Omaha. You know, for them, they kind of just see it as a flyover state. Do you guys lean into some of the the farm branding? Do you lean to the city branding, or do you what do y'all do to kind of qualm some of those, you know, those assumptions?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, the important part is getting kids out here to see what we're all about. You know, when they get here and they see there's a really cool city here in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's not just cornfields. You know, but there are cornfields. If you're a rural kid and you love the farm life, you'll love it here. If you're a city kid and you love to go out and do things in the city, you're going to love it here. And so I think selling the best of both worlds in that regard, there's everything here, you know. And so getting kids here is key so that they can see that.
You know, a lot of times you hear about highly ranked recruits coming in. How do you make sure that each of the kids are treated the same, or they get the same experience when you do an official visit?
Yeah, so our official visits, we like to tailor them kind of to each student athlete on their own, because I mean everybody's different. It's not a one mold fits all, obviously. But we're sure that we have it our staff is always around. We have coaches all around. We have our support staff all around. We have our recruiting staff all around at all times during these visits to make sure that everybody feels that sense of family and community within these walls here. I mean, I think that we do a great job of making sure that everyone feels the same. I mean, we don't look at the stars. We don't see that. Everybody's on the same playing field here. So whether you're a walk-on or rated 5-star, which we don't really look at, everybody's the same. And everybody, we want to have the same experience.
What makes a really good player host? And maybe this question is for Nancy. Who did you find over the years was just aces at being really good?
I can't talk about that. No, what makes a good host? What makes a good host is someone that can just speak from their heart and speak with their real life experience. Because kids can read through baloney really quickly, right? They can see through that. So just I've had different personalities. You can be an outgoing, you can be an introvert and be a good host. It's just about being, conveying the message and getting the young men in good positive social situations and just reflecting kind of their day-to-day life. And so, but I think but ultimately the ability to convey what the day-to-day experience of a student athlete is and do it in a fun way. And so there's a lot of different people that have done that. Keith was one of them. I mean, obviously, when I had from, kindled with him, and there's a couple other folks from his era. And then what's been really cool over the last few years is we don't have to like beg people to host anymore. Like back in the day, you used to have to please host, please host. It's not like that anymore. Guys love it. Guys are around the program. I think we're used to it now. Our student athletes are around our team, are around our staff a lot more than they used to be. We can provide, meals like we used to not be able to. So it's part of that atmosphere. Like, it's not unusual for our whole team to be in our student student athlete lounge eating a meal together. So it's just natural that when that's happening in recruiting, it just feels, and I think that's where that family comes from, because that's normal for us. And so I think that all ties together, because at the end of the day, that they all kind of go in sync.
Vince, what's a realistic commit goal that you guys would like to be at, maybe by mid-July, early August? Is there a number that would feel right? And how do you determine class size, knowing how fluid things are with the portal?
Yeah, and and with what could be coming down the pipe in someday in roster sizes, and who knows? It's constantly changing. So we know that over the next few years we're going to be churning through upheaval, right? And at the end, we are going to rely on our administration, who is outstanding, and we're going to rely on great information that they provide, advice that they're giving us, and we want to know the new rules, and we're going to stay on the cutting edge of it. So just say, like, what is a number that we need to be at? I think that's hard to say right now. I think ultimately, if you do the majority of your visits in the summer, therefore you'd like to have the majority of your commits, going along with that, by the summer. So I don't think there's a hard number, but I think it's safe to say just the majority, representing how many kids you visited, I think is probably a good way to.
Understanding that the recruiting calendar, do you still try to emphasize the game day experience? Can you still do that?
Oh, 100%. It's critical. It's critical.
How do you do it?
Everyone, tell me a little bit about our game day
So-
experience.
Game day, obviously, it's an awesome experience to have these recruits and families come and visit on a game day and experience a game day here at Memorial Stadium. But summer, we don't have games. And so we've worked really hard. Coach Rule has a very creative mind. He has many ideas that are really beneficial to recruiting and the recruiting side of things. So one of the things that we've started doing, we always do a big red welcome in East Stadium and have the staff there so they see that the original Memorial Stadium walls, they see that, and then we walk them out onto the field and have our creative team, everybody sees the stuff that they put out there. It's top notch. So have those videos playing, kind of just showing them what a game day is like here. I mean, you walk into Memorial Stadium and it's empty and you envision that packed. It's pretty breathtaking to a lot of these families and recruits. So.
That makes sense, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Yeah, I had another question for Vince. A lot of coaches will talk about, hey, we're going to use our camps to make offers, and some do and some don't. When Rule started rattling off those offers last year from camp, what was your reaction just internally? Because he put his offers where.
Right, I had the cheat code because luckily I was able to follow him at Baylor. I joined the staff that came immediately after him, so I knew how important camps were for that process, and I was excited because we have a camp that draws a lot of people here. Because of our branding, because we are centrally located in the region, we can draw a lot of kids here. Our staff works very hard to build those relationships, invite kids to camp, and then the proof is in the pudding. You saw we had a camp last year for postgrads. We took multiple players out of that, and they played in the fall. We had our high school camps. We identified multiple offers in that, brought them in on official visits right after the camps, got them committed. They'll be joining us this fall. So repeat that cycle. That's, I think, a way of looking at as how we are finding that value, as we talked about earlier, where others don't. So I think the data shows that, and I think that will never change for us. I think we'll continue to push the envelope and have great camps, and that is a reflection too of our commitment to the state, because we want to have every young man have an opportunity to come and demonstrate themselves in in the way that they would like to do that. So they know if we're taking camp seriously, then we'll get higher attendance because of it.
What do you have to do to get ready for that time of year? Like, first of all, what is your anticipation level for the month of June, knowing how important it was for the 24 class? Presumably it's gonna be like that for 25. So what's your anticipation level for the month of June, and what are you guys doing right now? to
Well,
prepare yourselves?
I'll tell you, our operations staff, Dr. Elza and her team are working around the clock to get ready for camps. We have a big support staff there that is working to prepare, between facilities and registrations and all the things that go into making a camp. That's going right now. So that's part of having a little bit larger staff. We're very lucky in that the personnel side is able to continue to work on evaluations and supporting the coaches on the road, while the operations staff is really nailing down getting the camps ready, while Avery and her staff and Chris are getting ready on those official visits. So we all have our units, and we are all attacking it as a group individually.
And I had a question for you, Vince. I guess, rules change and the landscape changes, but is there a kind of a guiding star of ethics that Matt Rule has set down for you?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at our program and our standards, we have a brand and we have a set of values and standards that we're going to live by, and they're on our wall, right? They're not just written down; they're printed and they're on the wall, and we live by those day in and day out. So that's one of the great things about working for Coach Rule. And again, that goes back to why we don't lose quite as many players as maybe some other programs, because the standards are there, they're written down, they're followed up on, they're enacted every day.
What's written on the wall?
I won't get into it too much, but just no, we're guided by some strong values. I think that we look upon every day.
Kind of bouncing off of the camps question, when at this point in, I guess, the quote-unquote rebuild, it's a different process than what was at Baylor or at Temple, considering, the wider net y'all cast. How do you balance some of those early, those evals y'all make where you're like the first offer and you can quickly turn around, get that guy on campus, get him committed, versus some of those higher ranked guys that you're now in on, as a result of the 2024 season, landing Dylan and everything that's come from that?
I guess I try to in depth a little more about what the actual question. I'm
Just how do you balance in terms of class size and spots? Taking a guy we've eval
I get what you're saying.
Versus an established prospect.
Well, yeah, you're going to go full go. There's going to be players that you're going to identify early, and you're going to go full go on those, if you will, national guys that for whatever reason have shown their talents early, right? And you're going to throw your resources, your marketing efforts, your recruiting efforts, full go at those young men until they're going to tell you no. Eventually, they tell you no, right? You keep asking, hey, you want to come on a visit? Eventually, they're going to say, probably not, right? And that's when okay, we move on to the next guy. So that process plays itself over the last 2 years, right? And then we know that at the end of the day, but that's what when I say Coach Rule never rests, we're not done. We're going to find creative ways to get good players in this program. And so to say, there's a finite time or a limit, there's not. We're always going to keep recruiting, and we're always going to try to find ways to get good players in here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Really appreciate it.